Welcome back to your Pig Trail Show. Will Monclair, alongside everybody's favorite Kevin McPherson for your Hog Hoops Report. Kevin, we got some basketball news to talk about. Seems like there wasn't a whole bunch last week, but we're closing in on that May 31st deadline. We're not going to start there though. It's moving day for the Hogs. What are you hearing about there? You meeting anybody? You seeing anybody on campus?
Well, it's this time every year. It's Memorial Day weekend when you start to see the new players arrive. Because look, right after the holiday, which is Monday, Memorial Day, you're going to start back with session one summer school. The players are going to go through their physicals. Arkansas can have limited uh, uh, instruction on court. It's very limited, but it starts out, all kind of these dominoes start to fall into place this time every year. And so move-in day is the first thing these guys got to do, right? And so it's not just one day, it's really kind of throughout the weekend. You had some of the new Hogs arrive on Saturday, some today. So everybody knows Leighton Blocker,
Oh
a
yeah.
high school prospect out of the Little Rock area, uh, one of the top 50 players in the country. Some services have had him in the top 30, but the 6'2", 6'3" combo guard moved in today. His arrival day was today. And he signed back in the early period. Arkansas picked up 5 transfers out of the portal back in April 3rd through 17. That was a 2-week window. Arkansas hit the portal hot and heavy, all backcourt wing type players. We'll go through those names, when we go in order of how they committed and came off the board.
Mm-hmm.
Keon Minifield Jr., 6'1" freshman guard last season, all Pac-12 at Washington. He's now on campus. Trayman Mark, the 6'5" wing out of Houston. Man, this guy was a winner. Started every game last year for the Cougars. He's been a part of a program that's had similar success, and it got to a Final Four, similar to Arkansas in the last 3 years when you look at the NCAA tournament. So here's a guy that has that kind of pedigree, bringing to the program with a lot of versatility. And some folks think he's a top 10 transfer when you look at some of these recruiting gurus that now rank the portal guys because there's so many of them. But Trayman Marks on campus. When you continue down the list, Khalif Battle, the 6'5" guard, arrived today. And this is a guy that's a scorer. I mean, this guy is a volume scorer. He's a bucket getter. We've seen over the last few years when Arkansas has guys like Mason Jones, Isaiah Joe, Moses Moody. When you looked at Stanley Moody, when you look at so many different players that have come in, Ricky Council fourth, to be that scorer type, that offensive producer. And this is that guy. I think they've kind of got earmarked for that. When you look at Jeremiah Davenport, this is a grad transfer, a guy with a lot of experience out of Cincinnati, a wing, kind of can maybe play that 3-4 combo, so he can be a little bit versatile there, but he's a 3-point shooter. So when I talk about him in battle, out of the 4 names I've mentioned so far, those are guys that I'm really going to think help Arkansas be better from behind the 3 than they've been in the previous 2 years. We know those have been struggle areas. Mm-hmm. And then Ellis, another guy that's going to help Arkansas score the basketball, including 3-point line and all the way to the rim. This guy's can be an electric scorer to the transfer out of Louisville. He's also in town and on campus. So all 5-year transfers are either in town or on campus or some combination of that, along with Leighton Blocker. Bay Fall, the big man, 6'11" forward center out of Denver. He initially was planning to be on campus this weekend. That's been moved out a little bit. We're going to keep an eye on that. I'm told it'll be sometime in June. It could be early June. It might be mid-June. Just going to keep it on that. But he's expected to arrive in Fayetteville at some point soon. So there's your 7 newcomers that we know about now. There's 2 open scholarships still there that we need to talk about, and that kind of gets into that NBA draft decision deadline, stay or go for a couple of Razorbacks. But real quick, speaking of that and going back to these guys that are on campus, 2 of those guys, Mark and Ellis, they were in that NBA draft.
Yeah.
Of course, they were in there, plus they had gone in the portal and then committed to Arkansas. Fully expected these guys were going to be Razorbacks and move in when they did. Not really, earth-shattering news this week when both announced they were withdrawing from the draft. Fully expected. But those are still formalities that had to be done by that May 31st deadline. That's happened. And so now it's housekeeping. And I can't wait till we talk about this part, because it's the unknown that excites everybody. Everybody's glad these other guys are there. Still some unknowns. And I think there's some things I want to talk about on a few of these guys.
Yeah, Kev, we've been talking about this forever. That May 31st deadline is basically already here. Who knows what we're going to be talking about next week? You sort of teased it there. What news do you think is going to come out that maybe we're not expecting? Maybe we are.
Well, I've changed
What are
midstream
we allowed to
for
talk
a while
about?
back. It's been a while on Devo Davis. For a while, I thought he'd elect to stay in. Over time, I got to a point where I felt like it's probably more likely he's going to come back. I fully expect Devo Davis to be an Arkansas Razorback for a fourth season. That's unprecedented, uncharted waters under Eric Musselman, who disassembles and reassembles a roster year to year. A 4-year guy that will be big. I think. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. He's got to work out with an NBA team on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
That's the 30th of the deadlines, right? A minute before midnight on Wednesday. Excuse me.
Do we know what team it is? Are we
Devo
allowed to talk
Davis
about that?
Work out with an NBA team. I'm not going to name it. I'm going to let Devo put it out if he wants to. I know who it is. And unless something changes on that, it falls through, but I don't think it will. It's been set up for a while, so he's got that workout. But again, he didn't go through the G League Elite Combine. He didn't go through the Draft Combine. And I think most of the feedback, really points to his best decision being to be a Razorback again. But this is a guy that's one of the all-time greats in the program, in my opinion, when you combine everything, including and especially postseason. I think sometimes he goes a little underappreciated, not by me. And this is a 5-star. This is retention.
Yeah, not by me either, on the record.
Huh?
I said not by me either, on the record. I
Very
appreciate
good.
Devo.
I like that.
Oh, Kevin, did we lose your volume there? Oh, we're back.
Recruiting win, Brendan, opinion, similar to what Trevin Brazil did back when all this began, when the season ended. He was the first off the board to say, I'm the first to come out and say, I'm coming back. That was expected, but you just never know. And so to me, those are 2 5-star recruiting wins when you're talking about important retention. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's let Devo Davis make his announcement.
Yeah.
Who knows? I guess I could land wrong on this. I don't think I will. Devo Davis, I believe, is coming back to Arkansas. Jordan Walsh has a decision. I have felt for the longest time, before he announced he was going to test the waters, he was preparing for the draft. I knew it was a matter of time before he was going to announce. I talked about it, reported that, and then he did. I've said all along, I think he stays in. I've got some sources who believe it's truly 50-50. The more I hear from NBA people I talk about, I think there's probably more traction for him to be a second rounder pick. There's more traction, but I think at best it's probably mid-second round and maybe even some late second round. And anytime that's the case, that's fine and dandy as long as 1 or 2 teams behind the scenes, under the table type of things, make some kind of guarantee, which they typically do. The last 3 Hogs to go early to mid-second round, I've had knowledge of their guarantees beforehand, so it was easy for me to say they were going to stay in. This one I don't have that kind of detail. I've been told he's got at least one guarantee from a source, at least one guarantee in the 50s. But look, guarantees not just about I'm guaranteeing to draft you. It's about some kind of guaranteed money in terms. And I don't know the answers to all of that. So what I'm saying is mid to late second round for Walsh may not be enough for him to decide to stay in. I felt like he's going to stay in. The further this goes, I'm closer to being 50-50 on it myself right now than I have been. If I had to if I had to call it with a gun to my head, I know that's kind of a poor analogy maybe.
Yeah, sure.
I'd say he stays in, but I'm real close to 50-50 now, as close as I've been, because I think the feedback's been good. I think he helped himself with the combine, Will, but that's relative to him. I think, and that's why there's probably more groundswell of teams that look at him as a mid to late second rounder, but that doesn't mean there's a guarantee in there. And only he and his camp know that. And that may not, and without that, I would think he might come back. If he has it, it's still a decision. Is that good enough? Might I still come back? So I think he may be closer to being on the fence than I thought he was, or at least at this point, he's getting closer to it. So I might be tracking with him. But I think that's going to be close. I'm real close to 50-50 on it. Still a slight lean that he stays in, but we'll see. Arkansas has the 2 open scholarships. I believe Devo's coming back, and I think we'll find out on Walsh again.
Yeah.
But there's a spot for him if he wants to come back. And so that makes other things a little bit interesting. And a couple of guys I want to talk about specifically, a 5-star, the number 1 player in the country, who recently got his release from the Texas Longhorns. You ready to talk about it, Will?
Yeah, let's jump right into it. Recruiting, Ron Holland, what's going on?
Yeah, well, it was reported, I think it was on Tuesday, John Rothstein with CBS Sports reported that he'd been released, has granted his release from Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and was visiting the G League Ignite. Now, I had several good sources that told me pump the brakes a little bit. Texas has indicated they are going to go through with the release, but it wasn't actually consummated at that point. That matters because if Ron Holland wanted to make a decision to commit somewhere or move on to another college, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
he couldn't do that. He's still bound until that release is finalized. I have since been told it is finalized. So semantics, a matter of a little bit of extra timing. To me, those things matter. The distinctions matter there. Ron Holland has received his fully been released, is my understanding. Oh, great news, because Texas just got under the tape on that 30-day window before Holland would then have to petition the NCAA. I
Mm-hmm.
still love Arkansas's chances. That's the word I've used. The G League Ignite. My understanding is he did visit in Las Vegas there for that team, which has been in pursuit of him back when he made a decision to go to Texas over Arkansas. Basically, those were the final two.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, but he didn't need a release from his letter of intent to look at any pro options, to go take visits, to go play pro somewhere. He didn't need to wait on that.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even really need to wait on a release to start visiting other schools. Once he requested it back on April 28th, that was enough to even take visits. I'm not sure he's done that. From what I understand, he hasn't to this point. So I still really think Arkansas is the leader here for me. I still love the chances. I guess that could change, but that's where I'm at with it right now on Ron Holland. So that kind of becomes a what happens if thing. What if Jordan Walsh in the next
Right.
72 hours decides to come back to Arkansas? Does that impact Ron Holland? Similar position type players, that 3-4 combo. Does it matter? I mean, these guys were teammates together in the spring and summer grassroots circuit a couple of years ago with Drive Nation, but that Dallas area-based program on the Nike EYBL. They're friends. They worked out not long ago together. So you just never know how, if one shoe drops first, how does that affect the other? Does a Ron Holland, if he were to commit to Arkansas, let's say, before Jordan Walsh made an announcement, does that give him a reason maybe to stay in? These are things I think are very interesting now when we start talking about which shoe drops first. There's another guy that's in the portal that's been in the NBA draft process, went through the combine, Grant Nelson,
Mm-hmm.
North Dakota State, that versatile 6'11" player, very athletic, a skilled guy when you start looking about how he gets himself into, scoring opportunities. He's a versatile player. Not the best defender when you look at across the board, but he does a pretty darn good rim protector, volume rebounder. I really like Grant Nelson, but if he chooses to back out of the draft, I'm told Arkansas has got as strong a play as anybody. Well, again, roster numbers have to be figured out, especially if you get one or two guys in Devo and or Walsh trying to come back, and maybe Ron Holland. So Arkansas's got several directions this could go. Obviously, if they add more than two with these two openings, and I'm including adding guys like Devo and or Walsh, because you'd be adding it at the point that they decide to come back, if that's the decision, then you might have some more jostling on that roster as to who's actually staying and going. So you've had the bulk of your move in. I mentioned Bay Falls, the one guy that's not quite there yet. And now you've got some of this other stuff that's going to fall. So the more that we know now, there's still a lot of big question marks. I talked about Devo would be a 5-star if you get him back. Of course, Jordan Walsh was a 5-star coming into the program. He'd be a 5-star recruiting win if you get him back. Ron Holland, the number 1 high school recruit in the country, obviously a 5-star. And I look at Grant Nelson as a top 5 transfer portal value, and that's a 5-star. So right now, with everything else pretty much resolved, it's all 5-star. It's 5-star watch. And Arkansas's in an enviable position.
Good way to put it.
When you look at the landscape of college basketball, what would love to be in these conversations. These are the conversations for years. Arkansas fans were looking at Kentucky, Duke, and maybe 2 or 3 others that were hot for a moment, and kind of sitting back going, when is that going to happen here? Well, it has happened under Eric Meltzman. It's where we're at now. Maybe a little uncomfortable for some fans as things are still a bit unresolved, Will. But it's a great position to be in. And Arkansas has contingencies for everything on how this could fall. So I think the Razorback coaching staff, in some ways, is comfortable because they know A, B, or C, it's going to land one way or another. And they have a real good idea of just how that's going to happen, as the rest of us kind of wait to see when the first domino falls on these last few names and what happens afterward.
Yeah, Kevin, this has got all the ingredients of being a very interesting Hong Hoops report next week. I know you love this stuff. This is very exciting, Kev. We appreciate your time. As always, thank you for coming on. More Picture Show after this.